Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Maine Morgue. I am your host, Jamie Santamore. It's very hard to believe that we've been doing this show now for 19 weeks. I'm very excited next week to do the 20th show. 20 weeks in a row it will be. Of course, next week is Thanksgiving, so as far as I know right now, the show upload is still going to take place on Wednesday, so you guys can watch it over Thanksgiving break if you're in school. I want to start off this week by saying thank you to all you guys for continuing to watch my Horror Pack indie movie reviews that come out on Saturday mornings. For those of you that don't know, that haven't been watching, Horror Pack is a monthly subscription box. It's a choice of 4 DVDs or 4 Blu-rays. DVDs are $19.99 a month, and Blu-rays are $24.99 a month. If you use the promo code JOINTHEPACK, you will get $3 off your first month subscription. Now, that being said, if you buy both Blu-rays and DVDs, you get 8 different titles. So there's the information about Horror Pack. I'm going to jump right in this week and do some movie talk. First movie I want to talk about is Digging Up the Marrow, which is a mockumentary, documentary type film written and directed by Adam Green. You might know Adam Green from the Hostel series. The documentary, quote-unquote mockumentary, is about William Decker, who believes monsters are real and can supposedly prove it. He convinces Adam and his crew to come along on this crazy journey. The makeup effects and the monster masks and makeup were amazing in this movie. And that was really the only thing I really liked about this experience, watching this movie. Not a fan of mockumentaries, not a fan really of documentaries as a whole. I do watch horror documentaries. More on that in a few minutes. I gave this movie a 3 out of 5 stabs because A, I'm not a documentary fan. I don't like the fact that you mocked the documentary genre of film, because there are, from what I understand, a lot of very good documentaries out there. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stabs. Next up, I want to talk about Bloody Murder. This was a very cheap Friday the 13th ripoff. Bad acting. The kills were awful. There wasn't enough blood. And I know that ripoffs are very common in the horror genre. But at least when I paid homage to Ghostface in my film Sins of Man Rise of Mortis and the Sins of Man trilogy, I changed the costume enough where it could be seen as something different in a way. Ghostface has the white face, whereas my killer Mortis, his costume is completely black. You cannot see there's no facial expression. And you know, I say this is a cheap Friday the 13th knockoff, and it is because they use a friggin' hockey mask. I mean, come on, how unoriginal can you get? The one thing I did like about this movie was the legend and the tale of the killer, Trevor Morehouse. And there was actually a sequel to this movie, which I can't believe they actually made a fucking sequel to this. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm thinking about checking it out. The story of Trevor Morehouse was very well done, and like I said, the one good thing I can say about this movie. I gave this movie a 2 out of 5 stabs because it was a horrible Friday the 13th ripoff. And he uses a chainsaw, or he's seen with a chainsaw at the beginning and the end of the movie. The actual Trevor Morehouse character. Excuse me. Alright. Lastly, I want to talk about His Name Was Jason, 30 Years of Friday the 13th. Now, I previously said that I watch horror documentaries, and this one is one that I watch almost probably once or twice a year, I would say. I know I watch it every year at least once. And you all know I love Friday the 13th. I'm wearing my Straight Outta Crystal Lake shirt. I'm actually polishing my Jason pendant to wear tomorrow. That's why I'm not wearing it tonight. And it's really cool for me to sit and listen to the actors who actually made these movies come to life and learn about their struggles on set and things they did, things they didn't do. And this documentary really gives you great information about the series. And I read Crystal Lake Memories, which is the book written by David Brackey, John Brackey. I can't never remember that guy's name. But it's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, pick it up, download it on, I believe it's on Amazon Books. But yeah, it's an amazing book, and it's a very good companion to this DVD. I actually have it here on my wall, signed by Ari Lehrman, who played young Jason in Friday the 13th. Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. I do enjoy this documentary much more than I enjoy Never Sleep Again, the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, which, I mean, I've seen it. It's very long. This one's long too, but I think Nightmare is twice as long as this, and Friday the 13th has had more installments. So, I mean, what does that tell you? Alrighty then, that's going to wrap up movie talk this week. Next up, I'm going to do fan questions because there's 6 questions that are going to require a long answer. Question number 1. If wrestling was your first love, why did you start making movies? Now, I think I've answered this before on the show, but yes, wrestling was my first love. Absolutely. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a little kid. I went to my first show on Thanksgiving night when I was 2 months old. If you ask my mother, that's how she remembers it. I obviously don't remember that show, but I've been to a lot of wrestling shows since then. And I always wanted to be a wrestler. I always enjoyed the in-ring action, the characters, the colors, the colorful outfits, the women, all of it. I just enjoyed it from a very young age. And I wanted to be a wrestler. And then I started wrestling in junior high, and I was small. And that's okay, because they have a smaller weight class. Then I got to high school. I was small, but they had a weight class. Going into senior year, I knew I could not become a wrestler professionally because I was, in fact, small. Granted, WCW and the WWE at the time, WWF at the time actually, had the light heavyweight and the cruiserweight divisions respectively. By the time I would have gotten out of wrestling school and been able to be booked on shows, I believe those things would have tapered off and just it would have been banging my head against the wall. And actually, when I started doing the backyard wrestling, which I don't shy away from that. I was very happy with what I was doing. I enjoyed what I was doing. But when it came time at, 34 years old, 35 years old, just a few years ago, I retired in 2008. And I went back in 2011, I believe it was, or 2012, it might have been. And it just wasn't there anymore. I had the competitive spirit. I just wasn't physically able to do it anymore. A lot of wear and tear. I mean, I wrestled for 20-something years nonstop, and it just wasn't happening. So I walked away. I retired again in 2013, and I have not wrestled since. So writing the wrestling shows was my creative passion. That's how I stoked my creativity. When I retired, I started writing screenplays because I thought it would be fun, just a way to keep my creative mind going. And when I wrote something that I thought was very well done, I decided, hey, I'm going to make this a movie, which would have been Wicked Carnival. Excuse me. That got shelved due to cost, and I wrote Sins of Man. So, to answer your question, I started making movies because I was passionate about writing. and then I wrote something that I thought would make a great film, and it turns out a year ago I released it on DVD, Sins of Man, Rise of Mortis, which already had 2 sequels written. Sins of Man 2 Vengeance comes out at the end of this month, and Sins of Man 3 Tribulation will go into production in late spring 2017. I enjoy writing. I enjoy making movies. Acting is not something I'm great at, but it's something that I'm looking forward to improving on. So we'll see how it goes, and I hope that really answered your question. Next question. How do you decide to use CGI or practical effects? Well, it's a funny story. When I started in pre-production of Rise of Mortis, I was strictly practical effects. I only wanted to do practical effects. Make the blood, make the wounds, all that stuff, put on the makeup, all that stuff. Realized I wasn't very good at it. So we would make cuts, fill them with blood, and then Chris in post-production would fix them with CGI. The CGI, my favorite CGI of the first movie is the third death of the movie and the opening of the movie. You haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure you haven't seen it yet. Not many people have. But go out and check it out on ibleedindie.com. You can get Sins of Man, Rise of Mortis. And I almost always want to use practical effects, and then over the issues that CGI creates, and computer effects, and green screen, it makes it make more sense to do practical effects, because there's a lot of stuff that goes in. That's why we had to delay Sins of Man 2 Vengeance, was because of all the CGI and green screen that goes into it post-production. So moving forward, I would like to say that we're going to do practical effects. The problem with practical effects is when you're coming into people's homes and they're letting you use their homes for nothing, and they say don't get blood on anything, that's when CGI comes in. You lay down the green screen, you say, okay, X marks the spot where the blood's going to be. Now, if we had a studio, a sound stage, where we could build our own sets, we'd cover the walls top to bottom with blood. But we'll see how that works out in terms of Sins of Man 3 Tribulation. I hope that answers your question. Next question, and I get this one a lot. Why do you like Friday the 13th more than Halloween? I believe I said this a couple weeks ago on the show, but here we go again. Oh, delicious cold water tonight. It's really helping the throat. I like Friday the 13th more than Halloween, mainly because of the continuity of the story. They don't take Jason out for, 3 movies in the middle of the fucking series, which made no fucking sense to the Halloween storyline. But like I said, if you watch Halloween 2, and H2O, that is a perfect fucking trilogy. Then you watch parts 4, 5, and 6, that is the Jamie Lloyd trilogy. Resurrection, I mean, if you want to throw that in and make the original trilogy a 4-parter, it works, I guess. But, Friday the 13th, other than part 5 and part 9, makes complete sense chronologically. So, and I love Jason. I love the fact that he was the first person to really branch out in terms of what he used as weapons. In the first movie, Michael pretty much only uses the kitchen knife, and then in the second one he uses like the scalpel and a syringe, and then he starts branching out. And Jason's first movie, which would have been part 2, it's different things. Even in part 1, when it was Mrs. Voorhees, there were different things used to kill people. So, to answer the question and shorten it up a little bit, just the story continuity, I guess, is the main reason I like Friday the 13th more than Halloween. It's easier to follow. Next question. How do you handle writer's block or issues when writing? Perfect example. This week I finished my outline, writing my notes into script form from an outline for my latest slasher movie, which I've talked about the last couple of weeks on the show. And it only came out to 42 pages. Well, as many of you know, 90 pages is like a minimum for a feature-length film. That's my minimum anyways. I've seen movies that end in 88 minutes. And, I two choices. I can go back to square one and start over, or I can try to fill in what I've already have written. Because my outline was 19 pages long, and it still wasn't enough to create a feature-length film. How I handled it is this afternoon, I started working on a notebook with ideas and my original outline, and I wrote detailed character biographies so I know what each character is about in the main cast. I didn't do all of the little bit players and all that stuff. And I just look for ways to solve the problem. Writer's block is best described as when your imaginary friends stop talking to you. Mine stopped talking to me a long time ago. But issues with writing, I just pop on some music and I sit at my desk and I think. And I usually come up with a solution. Next question. How long do you plan on making movies? As long as I can is the best answer I can give you. There's no guarantee that I'll be successful, but as long as I can continue to create movies, scripts, get actors and cast and crew, I'll continue to make movies. Last question this week. Do you write roles for yourself or with yourself in mind? I think I've also covered this before on the show. I never write a role for myself other than the typical director cameo, which I think is something I learned from Wes Craven. He always puts himself in the movie. Stephen King does it as well. So no, as far as writing myself a role, I don't. Now, having myself in mind when I'm writing a character, yes. The Jason Martin character in Sins of Man is very much me, in that he always tries to do the right thing. He always tries to be there for people, even when it's not in his own personal best interest. He's always there for people. I try to instill as much of myself as I can into my male lead character, because I always try to do the right thing, whether people fucking like it or not. So I hope that answers your question. Next up, upcoming movies that I'm looking forward to seeing, and this is a pretty long list. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I'm very excited to see that. Kong Skull Island. I'm very excited to see that. The new Halloween movie, which I guess is supposedly going to come out in 2017. The new Friday the 13th movie, which is, again, supposed to come out next year. I'm very much looking forward to that. Godzilla 2. King Kong versus Godzilla, which is supposed to happen in 2020, I believe. Star Wars Episode 8. Justice League. The Flash. Aquaman. Deadpool 2, and of course Wonder Woman, which I believe comes out next year? I want to say next year. Maybe later this year. I can't remember. But those are the list of movies that I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I'm sure there's others that I just didn't mention. I'm huge into Star Wars. I love the Star Wars series. But one thing that bugs me about Rogue One is it's called Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And Disney and Star Wars people tell you that, oh, it's a standalone movie. Then why not just call it Rogue One instead of Rogue One, a Star Wars story? Because we all know it's a standalone movie, yes, but it takes place between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. So it is a part of the Star Wars story if you think about it, and I think that's why they call it a Star Wars story, because it does revolve around the Star Wars story itself, but it's not part of the original prequel trilogy or the original trilogy. Anyways, that's just my take on it. Segment 4 this week is going to be about monster movies. I absolutely love them. I can remember when I was a little kid sitting with my grandparents watching the Godzilla movies, and I believe they aired on the Fox network on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. They'd have like a 3 or 4 hour block of them. And they'd show like 2 or 3 movies. Godzilla versus Mothra, Godzilla versus this thing. I could just remember watching them with my grandparents and loving them. And I like the new monster movies as well. You know, Cloverfield was fucking awesome because you didn't know what the fuck it was. I love the new Godzilla movie. I'm very excited to see Kong Skull Island, like I said. I really enjoyed 05's King Kong. The humor was lost on me for the first time I saw it. I didn't understand it. But then the second time I watched it, it made more sense. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the original Universal monsters. Dracula, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, the Mummy. I remember all those movies. Love those movies. And I really, really cannot wait for King Kong versus Godzilla. With all the technology we have going forward, this movie is going to be awesome. The reason I started this conversation this week about monster movies is, yes, I have been working on a monster movie for Wicked Carnival Productions for a while now. Nothing is official, but I would like to someday soon make a monster movie. Not like a giant Godzilla or King Kong movie, more of a smaller scale monster movie. And lastly, this week, I want to talk about a request I was given by a fan due to my past in the world of wrestling. And say that officially, wrestling is in my past and filmmaking is my future. I was asked to do a wrestling style promo here on the show. I was originally going to do it. However, after sitting and thinking about it for a few minutes, and really a couple of days, I decided that it wasn't a good idea. Because I was going to shoot on my buddy Eric Perry, who's a paranormal investigator in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I was going to do a promo about a match that's never going to happen. So what's the point? I didn't see the point in it, you know? You know, I could do one, and I could do one well, but I just don't want to. You know, I have wrestling trophies and medals and championship belts and all that stuff, and to be honest with you, they're all packed away. I have some in my DVD closet right there. They're all on the bottom, covered by movies and Peanuts memorabilia. Excuse me. You know, and like I said earlier, I don't shy away from my past in wrestling. I can't. I mean, because I have aches and pains and scratches and scars and injuries that never healed properly from my 20 freaking plus years in wrestling. And I'll never shy away from it, but I just don't see the point in sitting here talking about a match that's never going to happen. I'll say this about my wrestling background. It has helped me greatly in the world of filmmaking in terms of doing stunts. During the filming of Sins of Man, Rise of Mortis, there is a fight scene that is very brutal, and we just poured it on. Myself and Ken Messier, there wasn't anything we weren't up to doing just to make the fight scene better. And I took a lot of abuse physically, and we did that scene 5 or 6 times. The first time. And then we actually ended up reshooting it because we didn't like the way it looked. And the second time it was even better. So, in terms of doing stunt work, wrestling has helped me because I'm very much into taking abuse. I'm very good at it. And I'll tell you a funny story to kind of wrap up this segment. We were filming a fight scene. We were in a garage. It was leading up to the finale of the movie. And we go, I want you to hit me with something really hard. So he had an industrial sized strength dustpan. And I go, hit me with it. So he gives me this little, I'm like, no, you got to hit me harder than that. If you want me to react like you're killing me, you're going to have to hit me harder than that. So he gives, I'm like, no, you're going to have to hit me harder than that. Rear back like it's a tennis racket and just whack me. And all of a sudden, he just goes, bam, right between my shoulder blades. It hit me, I hit the ground. I got up, shrugged it off, and I said, when he says action, that's how I want you to hit me. He's like, all right. And he did, and it looked great. It sounded great. Hurt like a son of a bitch, but it's, it's all in a day's work. So, I love wrestling. I enjoy watching it. I was actually just watching Monday Night Raw. I'm filming this very late on. I actually turned off Monday Night Raw early to shoot this because I have a bunch of shit to watch on my DVR. But wrestling is my past. In terms of getting in a ring, getting on a mat, wrestling is my past. Filmmaking is my future. Filmmaking is my passion. I think I'm very good at it, or I'm getting better at it. And I will never say never, but at this point in my life, at 38 years old, I'm pretty confident in saying that my wrestling career is over. Every once in a while I look at this right here and I'll show you a piece of memorabilia. This right here is the WCCWA Heavyweight Championship belt. I held this belt 21 times in my career. It's pretty good, right? I want to say 25 years of wrestling, 21 times I was a heavyweight champion. It did pretty good. It is what it is. And like I said, I'll never say never, but I'm busy with filmmaking and raising 3 kids and being a husband and everything that goes on with running your own production company. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. It really is. I say I take days off, but when I'm not on Facebook and Twitter promoting, I'm on the phone, I'm writing, I'm doing regular everyday things that every person does. Grocery shopping and taking my wife out and things like that. So, that's all I got this week for the show. I don't really have anything else extra to say, I don't think. Let me check the notes one more time. I just want to say thank you guys to everybody who watches the show every week. I really enjoy doing this show for you guys. It's fun, it's exciting. I love getting your fan mail. I love talking to you guys on social media and via email. I always leave contact information for you guys, but in case I can't render this week, like I couldn't render last week's show, my email is themainmorgue@gmail.com. My Twitter is @themainmorgue. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/themainmorgue. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel for all updates. I now do 2 shows a week with the weekly Maine Morgue episode and the weekly Horror Pack indie movie review, which this coming Saturdays is going to be the movie Open Windows. That's all I got this week. Excuse me. Just a reminder, Thanksgiving next week will not affect the upload schedule. I will still upload on Wednesday. So you guys can sit around the computer on Thanksgiving and laugh at the guy that does the podcast every week. Stay humble, stay hungry, my friends. Take care, and I will see you guys next week.